This is not just another headline. This is the kind of political storm that could decide whether Britain holds together or falls apart. Right now, as you're watching this video, King Charles III is standing at the edge of a decision that no British monarch has faced in over 300 years. His choice could either protect the crown or trigger a collapse that historians may one day call the final chapter of the monarchy itself. At first, it seemed like just another political deadlock in Westminster. A prime minister clinging to power, a government split in half, angry debates in Parliament that felt more like shouting matches than actual governance. But then something shifted. What started as frustration quickly transformed into a national revolt. Protesters flooded the streets, not in the hundreds, not in the thousands, but in the tens of thousands. Social media lit up with calls for change. And within days, petitions were gathering millions of signatures, demanding accountability and new elections. For ordinary citizens, this wasn't politics anymore. It was survival. Rising costs, collapsing trust, and the sense that Britain was being led straight into chaos pushed people to a breaking point. And here's where the unthinkable happened. The public stopped looking to the government for answers and started looking to the monarchy. Now imagine this. You are King Charles. You spent your entire life preparing to inherit the throne. You waited decades for the crown, and finally, at an age when most people are retiring, you became monarch. But instead of peace and respect, you are suddenly thrust into the middle of the worst constitutional crisis in 2 centuries. On one side, the government insists it has everything under control, but the collapsing numbers say otherwise. On the other side, the people are chanting outside Buckingham Palace itself, demanding royal intervention. This is not what Charles expected, but this is the reality he faces. And the pressure is growing by the hour. Some might say, but haven't we seen political meltdowns before? Yes, Britain has had scandals, divided governments, even collapsing prime ministers. But this time, something is different. This time, the crisis has spilled out of Parliament and landed directly at the gates of the monarchy. And once the people start demanding action from the crown, the stakes rise to a whole new level. Historians are already calling this the most serious test of the monarchy's role since the 1600s. International observers, and from Washington to Brussels, are warning that Britain's instability could trigger consequences far beyond its borders. In short, this isn't just a UK problem anymore. This is a crisis with global eyes watching. So what are Charles's options? Both roads lead into a storm. He could step in and intervene, using his royal authority to push for elections or force political leaders to resolve the deadlock. But if he does, critics will accuse him of violating centuries of constitutional tradition. It would look like a king overruling democracy. Or he could do nothing, stay silent, remain neutral, and let the government collapse under its own weight. But if he chooses this, history may judge him as the monarch who stood by and did nothing while Britain unraveled. Either way, the monarchy risks losing something it has always relied on: legitimacy. And once legitimacy is gone, the crown itself could crumble. Reports from inside the palace suggest Charles is holding private meetings with advisors every single day. Some insiders claim he's furious with ministers for dragging the crown into the chaos. Others whisper that he's considering a bold step that would shock the world. Meanwhile, the streets are boiling. Outside Downing Street, crowds chant for leadership change. Outside Buckingham Palace, protesters demand the king himself speak up. Signs read, "No crown without democracy," and "Charles, do something now." Think about that for a moment. When was the last time British citizens demanded their monarch intervene in politics? Not in our lifetimes. Not in our parents' lifetimes. You'd have to go back centuries. That's how extraordinary this moment is. And here's the chilling part. This crisis doesn't have weeks or months to resolve. It has days. Every hour of silence increases the tension. Every headline about collapsing approval ratings adds fuel to the fire. Charles knows that one wrong move could destabilize the monarchy for good. But doing nothing could be just as fatal. Right now, the king is staring at what may be the hardest choice of his entire reign. And whichever path he takes, Britain will never be the same again. That's where we are so far. In the next part of this video, we'll dig even deeper into what's really happening behind closed doors, the secret strategies, the shocking numbers, and the possibility of a decision that could shake the monarchy to its very foundations. But before we continue, hit that subscribe button right now, because as this story develops, the next update could literally rewrite the history of Britain. The story begins to take a darker turn behind the palace walls. What the public sees is only a fraction of what's actually unfolding. Inside those gilded rooms, Charles is reportedly torn between conflicting voices. Some of his closest advisors are urging him to hold firm, to remain above politics at all costs. They warn that the monarchy has survived precisely because it stayed neutral, because it never bent under pressure. But others are whispering that if he doesn't act now, he may lose everything. Silence, they argue, is not neutrality anymore. It's complicity. Meanwhile, the government is collapsing under its own contradictions. Ministers who just weeks ago stood proudly beside the Prime Minister are now abandoning him one by one. Approval ratings have sunk to record lows. Journalists describe the atmosphere in Westminster as toxic, with shouting matches breaking out behind closed doors. The sense is clear. The ship of state is taking on water fast, and everyone is scrambling for lifeboats. On the streets, the mood is shifting from protest to outright defiance. The chants are louder, the signs bolder. Crowds outside Buckingham Palace are not just demanding action, they are demanding accountability. It's no longer simply Charles, do something. Now, it's no more monarchy if nothing changes. That's a dangerous escalation, because for the first time in decades, the monarchy itself is being questioned not as a symbol, but as an institution. The media feeds the fire. Headlines warn of Britain's breaking point. Talk shows speculate about whether Charles might become the last monarch of the United Kingdom. International outlets frame the crisis as a warning to other democracies. Even the most stable traditions can crumble when leaders ignore the will of the people. And every day the cameras turn toward Charles, waiting for a word, a gesture, a decision. So what happens if he speaks? Imagine the king stepping up to a podium, addressing the nation with a trembling voice. If he calls for elections, the people may cheer, but Parliament could erupt in fury, accusing him of overreach. The crown would be dragged directly into the mud of politics, breaking a rule that has held for centuries. But if he chooses silence, then the protests may grow so powerful that they force a reckoning not just with the government, but with the monarchy itself. This is why many insiders call it a lose-lose situation. There is no safe path left. Every option carries consequences that will echo through history. And Charles knows this. Those who have spoken privately say he looks exhausted, even haunted. He understands that his decision may define not just his reign, but the survival of the monarchy for generations to come. As if the domestic crisis weren't enough, the international stage is closing in. Leaders in Europe and America are quietly expressing concern. A Britain in chaos weakens alliances, destabilizes markets, and emboldens rivals. Some even whisper that foreign powers are watching eagerly, hoping the cracks in Britain's foundation widen. That's how high the stakes have become, a national crisis that could ripple across the globe. And yet, through all this noise, the ordinary people remain at the center. Families struggling with bills, young people feeling betrayed by leaders, workers demanding honesty. They are the ones who have turned this into something more than a political crisis. This is now a crisis of trust. Trust in government, trust in institutions, and yes, trust in the monarchy itself. The truth is unavoidable. Britain has reached a breaking point. The crown, once seen as untouchable, is now at the heart of the storm. And every passing day without a decision only deepens the cracks. So the question stands, what will Charles do? Will he step into history as the monarch who broke tradition to save the nation, or the one who preserved tradition while the nation burned? Either choice is monumental. Either choice could reshape Britain forever. As you watch this, the clock is ticking. The advisors are meeting. The protests are swelling. The world is waiting. And somewhere inside the palace, King Charles is weighing the heaviest decision of his life. So I ask you, if you were in his place, what would you choose? Would you break the rules to protect the people, or would you protect the institution and risk losing it all? Tell me your answer in the comments below, because this is not just a story about one man. It's a story about an entire nation standing on the edge of history. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist, every leak, and every shocking update, then don't just watch. Be part of this community. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and join us here at UK Alert Files. Because the next 24 hours could change everything we know about Britain. And trust me when I say, you do not want to miss what happens next.